Kathleen, video statement, please.
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel, on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse. The meeting is also webcast at www.faxmetrocable.tv. Tonight's meeting will air this Friday and Saturday at 9 a.m. This meeting is also closed captioned. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Very good, thank you. Any agenda approval, additions, or deletions? Seeing none?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out we do have a special agenda for this evening with one item on it, and it would be my recommendation that we take it up after we complete item K3 on the regular agenda.
Very good. We shall do so. Moving on to presentations. Police records presentation. Oh, police department.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Gross. Most of you probably know me, but I'm the Records and Communications Supervisor at the Police Department. I've been there for 27, quite a while. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our division this evening, duties that we perform. What is it that we do? Our division provides the initial non-emergency contact at the police department. Our records clerks act as the receptionist, so to speak, for the PD. They enter calls for service. They assist with vehicle releases, process citations, process police records requests, perform live scan records, process subpoenas for officers, etc. We also assist citizens at the front counter with CopLogic, which is a new online reporting system. We have a kiosk in our lobby, and so for non priority crimes with no suspect information, online reporting can be done in our lobby. So our records assistants help with that. They also process registrants for sex offenders, gang rapes, arson offenders, and narcotics offenders. In 2014, with one full-time and one part-time records clerk, we processed 3,800 copies of reports, 356 criminal citations, over 2,000 citations for moving violations, over 1,500 parking violations, performed 375 live scan prints, and entered 1,900 calls for service. When citizens come to the front counter, often they wonder why we ask so many questions. So a brief overview of why that. We need to know where the crime occurred initially because, for one thing, quite often we get citizens from outside the city coming to the counter wanting to report something that would be outside our jurisdiction, and we would have to refer to the appropriate agency. Also, to enter a call for service, the first item that's needed is a location. So we do ask that question. Then we ask what happened, again, to determine what type of call we need to enter into our call for service. We ask when it happened in order to determine priority. Emergency calls or calls that have just occurred or occurred within the last 10 minutes or so obviously would get a higher priority than something that happened a week ago. So we do ask that question as well. In order to assist citizens appropriately, once we've asked these questions, you know, as I've said, emergencies sometimes come to our front counter, so we do oftentimes call the dispatcher immediately as we're entering a call for service so that we can get assistance as soon as possible. Another task that we perform is a vehicle release. If a vehicle is towed and stored because the violator has, for whatever reason, is not able to drive their vehicle, whether it's a suspended license or they've been taken into custody, etc., our records clerks process the release of that vehicle. We can only release the vehicle to either the registered or legal owner of the vehicle. They're required to have a valid driver's license. If they do not, they need to present themselves as well as someone who does have a valid license. The vehicle must be currently registered, have no parking citations on file. If a vehicle is towed for a 30-day impound, which can occur if the driver has a suspended license, then we can release it prior to the 30 days if the person who was driving the vehicle does obtain a valid license prior to the 30 days. Otherwise, we hold it for 30 days. We release records on a daily basis to the district attorney in order to ensure the prosecution of crimes. We release to other law enforcement agencies, to probation and parole, to attorneys, to the public, to Child Protective Services, Adult Protective Services, many other agencies as well. In order to submit a request for a record, we do require a written request. So that can be in the form of a form that we have at the front counter, in an email. We do receive faxes as well. We have 10 days, this does say 10 working days, but it is 10 days to determine eligibility for receipt of the record. And then we generally try to do it within a day or two of receipt, just to get the process going. And we do charge a $9 fee per record. The citations we process, parking violations are to the Citation Processing Center down in Southern California. We contract with them to handle those. Moving violations would go to Carol Miller, and the criminal citations then go to the district attorney's office. We do live scan, which is a digital fingerprinting system. We're scheduled out by appointment only, except for city employees. We charge $35 rolling fee. And some agencies who are requesting fingerprints do pay the fees themselves, otherwise the applicant has to pay the fees. So there could be DOJ or BI fees applicable as well. They must bring the appropriate live scan form and a photo ID. That pretty much sums up what our division does. Any questions?
Counsel?
Oh, well, it was a good report. Thank you. Thank you, very appreciated.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jen. Okay, moving on to public comment.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the clerk.
I don't see that we have any. All right. Moving on. Consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve? Move. Okay, we'll take the motion by Councilmember Campion and second by Vice Mayor Payne. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Unanimous vote. All right, moving on to strategic plan update. That caught me off guard. Okay, as for our latest on the enhanced maintaining infrastructure and facilities, our finance director, working with the city manager and public works, will be developing recommendations for a citywide equipment replacement plan and present it to the City Council for action. Under Enhanced Economic Development, by October 1st, our city manager will hire an economic development manager. And interviews, from what I understand, have been completed. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, that is correct. So we have done the interviews and plan to make a hiring offer within the next week.
Outstanding. Under Improved Financial Stability, Mr. City Manager, back to you.
Okay, well, this, unlike the last item, this is not a good news item. So, AB 113, which was a bill that we had hoped would help to resolve our outstanding issues with the Department of Finance and our redevelopment wind down, that bill stalled out during the summer, and now with the end of the legislative session, that bill appears to be dead. But what happened on the last day of the legislative session, so Friday, was some of the portions of that bill that are not favorable to cities got lifted into a budget trailer bill, and without any kind of comment or debate, were adopted by the legislature. It is now on the governor's desk for signature. Some of the portions in AB 113 that were beneficial to the city of Galt, it does not appear that they have moved over, but that bill is about a 50-page document, so we're still evaluating it, and we'll have a more thorough report for the council at the next session. But it just is always it just always amazes me how in a democracy you can have a situation where a piece of legislation can be essentially drafted, introduced, and adopted by the legislature in a period of 24 hours with no public notice or even comment. So we will be.
It makes you wonder whether the legislators are actually even reading what they're approving.
Well, with a 50-page bill introduced, on a Friday morning, and it's adopted by the end of the day, there's no way that they could read it or understand all the implications. So we will be going through that. We didn't really become aware of it until Monday, and so we're in the process of evaluating it, and we'll report back to the council at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to attract, develop, and retain quality employees. HR Administrator.
The highlighted item, actually, I have not started that, but it is on target. We're looking to do it by the end of the year, provide the information to the department heads so that they can follow up with the next steps of the process.
Awesome, thank you. And under Enhanced Cultural and Youth Activities, where's he at? Mr. Winkler.
Yes, the highlighted item is to complete the Harvey Park improvements funded by the Housing Grant Fund, and we're well on our way. We've had a new playground up and ready for the kids for the Heritage Festival weekend, and I have seen lots of kids on lots of days since then, so I think that's been a success. We had some volunteers that we certainly want to thank along the way, and they're working on some potential city recognition for the various organizations that helped out with installation of the equipment. And we got we have several items remaining, and right now we're targeting that hopefully between now and February we'll get those items completed. The next big item is installation of bathrooms, and you've got an item on your agenda tonight to move that forward, and that's going to take a big bite out of the remaining funds, and we'll be down to about $16,000 to complete the other little wish list items that your council previously prioritized, but progress has been good.
Outstanding. And it looks like the last item we have here is improve long-term water sustainability. Back to you.
This item is to implement the water meter transition plan and rate study, previously approved by your council, at least proceeding with those, and with prior council direction. We have awarded a contract back in July to Raftellus Consulting Engineers and have been working with them diligently to download lots of our water meter, water usage, water production, and water consumption historical usage to them so that they can build a rate model that would help us look at whether our current rate structure is adequate going forward in the face of drought conditions and mandated water conservation, and well as we're ready to implement transitioning existing flat rate customers, which represent over 80% of the city's water connections, to a metered rate, make sure that in the face of water conservation that doesn't impair our sustainability of our revenue sources. And we made good progress, had a major conference call with them today to look at their latest models and where those trends are, and to look at some rate scenarios that we'll be bringing back. Right now, just to give you kind of a peek ahead, we're tentatively slated for a study session with council on October 6th. Council members had previously requested some extra time to get some of the details so that we don't just give you your normal 2-3 days to absorb that. So where we're at as of today is we're still targeting that study session on October 6th, and be up to sort of the mayor's discretion as to whether we move that to the regular session at 7 or whether we continue with a perhaps 4:30 afternoon session. It does look like a rather light agenda. We'll be talking about it probably in department head meeting tomorrow as to a recommended approach to that. What we would anticipate having to council a full week prior to October 6th would be our full staff report, which would look at some of the various rate options, executive summary of the findings of the rate model that's been built as to sustainability of our revenue stream, and to look at some possible rate restructuring scenarios. We'll also have for you, hopefully, a preliminary draft of our PowerPoint presentation. So that would be coming forward at the study session, so you can kind of see the information and review that, as well as an executive summary of the draft consultant's report. We will not have the full report available by the 29th, but we will at least have the executive summary identifying sort of the process that's been used, some of the preferred rate methodologies that would be recommended by the consultant, and a couple of the rate scenarios that we'll be presenting, as we will be looking for council guidance and input on a preferred approach to a rate structure going forward. And then we would be bringing back a full final report, hopefully on October 20th, for final endorsement to go out to our residents with a Prop 218 notice of intention on rates, and starting that process. But we'd also look for public input on October 6th at the study session as to some of the options we're looking at as well. So, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take this opportunity just to make sure that that approach is acceptable to the council. So just to summarize what Mr. Winkler indicated, is documents would be distributed to the City Council on Tuesday, the 29th of September. Will be a staff report, the PowerPoint, and the executive summary of the consultant's work product. And then we would hold the study session on October 6th, council meeting, get any kind of input from the council, questions, comments, and then bring the final staff report back to the council for your review and endorsement on October 20th. So I wanted to make sure that rollout of documents, that schedule was acceptable to the council.
You're saying September 29th?
So September 29th for staff report, PowerPoint, and the executive summary of the consultant's work. So the consultant will not have completed all of the work. My understanding is that the goal is to get some feedback from the council on this executive summary during the workshop on October 6th. Use that feedback from the council to prepare the final report, which will come back for your review and consideration on October 20th.
Is there any possible way to make sure that gets in the boxes for council, say by 10 o'clock on the 29th, because you're going to be losing 3 of us?
Well, if it's if it is not, I'm not going to the league conference until Wednesday, and so
Can you
if
bring it
later,
up
I
with
will
you?
bring it down to you.
I'd appreciate it.
I won't be available to review that until probably the 1st.
Well, then you better mark your calendar off that day, 'cause
Actually, it's going to be the 2nd. Are we open on that Friday? The 2nd?
We're closed that day.
Yes. Right, as long as we get,
You have to make
the
arrangements.
more information we get, the better.
But, I mean, if there's, if there's something in City Hall you need to, I can
I'll figure it
make
out.
sure it gets to you.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Is that gonna be enough time, though, you think, to hold a meeting on the
Well,
2nd?
unless you're giving us, 3 inches of
No, it's
documents.
not. Okay, well, I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify, because I know there was a lot of discussion previously, and I wanted to make sure we're meeting your expectations.
Okay,
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Moving on, City Manager's Office. Letter of state legislators in support of net metering. Mr. Rudolph.
Okay, just by way of background, the state legislature is currently considering a lot of potential policy documents relating to what's known as net metering. And basically, what this concept of net metering is that a customer's electric meter keeps track of how much electricity is consumed by the customer and how much excess electricity is put back into the system by a solar grid. And then over a 12-month period, the customer only has to pay the net amount of electricity that they used over and above the electricity that was generated by their solar system. And this approach of net metering over a 12-month period enables the consumers to purchase a smaller and more efficient solar system. Without this approach in place, the consumers would have to purchase a system that would be designed for their peak energy demand, or they would have to risk paying for electrical power needs beyond what is generated by their system. So with so many homes purchasing and installing these solar power systems, it's cutting into the business of the electrical utilities, which is why they are proposing legislation to limit the net metering benefit to the consumers. And so the city was, or some of the city council members were actually contacted by solar power organizations urging communities to come forward and convey to their elected representatives their support for maintaining this net metering policy. It certainly seems to be a policy that would favor the consumer, the small homeowner, and encourage them to continue to purchase solar grids for their home. So what we have done is to prepare draft letters to both Assemblymember Cooper and to Senator Kathleen Galgiani for your consideration. If the council supports this measure to maintain net metering and you pass it, then the mayor would sign these 2 letters and we would send them off to our legislators. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, questions?
No, I have a question. I brought this up, I don't know, other council members may have as well, with Steve. But to me, it makes no sense to disincentivize the solar industry the way they are potentially, well, I don't even know what exactly they plan on doing. I mean, as the letter says, you don't need to fix it if it isn't broken. I think that's very applicable here. I mean, there are a number of people that bought those systems under the net metering program, assuming that it would not change. And to change it, to the literally probably hundreds of thousands of homes in California doesn't seem right to me.
No, I tend to agree with you on that. It's like they're putting a cap on it.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem right, and I'm sure that the energy companies aren't in agreement, but as pointed out in the letter, I mean, it is a huge benefit economically, as well as to not only in terms of employment, but to the net user, end user. The only thing, would council be interested in, you know, this isn't to diminish you as the mayor, but would it make more sense to have all council members sign this?
I think it would be a great idea. It should,
I think if we all agree,
Yeah.
I think it may make a little bit of difference. Whether it's going to make a difference or not, I don't know, but at least our representatives know that that's how we feel, rather than from an individual.
Everybody else with that? Can we modify the letter accordingly?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay, you have a motion by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye, unanimous. All right, we have our marching orders on that one. Finance Department, fiscal year 2014-2015 pre-audit budget update.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and community members. So as you just presented, I am here to present the pre-audit financial update for Council as an informational item. We do anticipate completing the audit this week, so some of this information is off the press, but I do want to convey the information. We are coming through an improved economy, so I do want to present some of this information. Barring any significant adjustments discovered by the auditors, we believe that the information that I'm about to present will be indicative of where we expect the fiscal year results. The primary focus of the report will continue to be the general fund and the culture and recreation fund. Again, those primarily consist of daily operations outside of the enterprise. So I will start off by talking about the general fund. I'm going to start off with some bad news, but I hope to correct that shortly thereafter. The revenues in the general fund are lower compared to the budget by just over $500,000. So when you see the audit, you're going to see that. But let me go ahead and explain what makes up that number. So we have two grants that basically haven't been received. We have a CDBG grant for over $230,000, and we have some ADA safety grants. So that makes up a chunk of that, $500,000. We also have a loan that we estimated as a revenue for the police building. We did our internal refinancing, and even though we showed it as a revenue source, another financing source, from an accounting perspective, we book it as a loan. So that amount did happen, but we have to account for it differently. So there's another $286,000. If you take both of those ticket items, we actually would have ended up the fiscal year by over $9,000 to the good. I wanted to clarify that. So when you see the audit, you'll see that negative of $500,000, but I'm trying to address why that change is going to occur, and it's really an accounting entry. So let me talk a little bit about some of those revenues. Property taxes, we makes up about 41% of the general fund, and we had an increase over budget of just about $6,000. Again, we're seeing an increase in assessed value on our secured rolls. Sales tax, we had some positive growth there as well, $6,000. Licenses and permits, we saw some activity with the building permits on single family and commercial development of just over $28,000. Intergovernmental revenues were lower than budget, again, primarily because of the CDBG grant that we didn't receive. We estimated it, we just haven't received it yet because all the expenditures have not been incurred yet. Revenues from refunds and reimbursements was down as compared to budget. Primarily the reason was reimbursements anticipated relating to the Wilton Rancheria project, and that was just about $93,000. Revenue from miscellaneous was less than budget by $286,000. Again, that's just an accounting entry related to the police building loan. So overall, we think that even though it's going to show less than $500,000, when you take those two big ticket items, we're actually to the good about $9,000 as far as general fund revenues are. When we look at expenditures, our expenditures were less than budget by just about $1.7 million, but we have some encumbrances, we have some carry forwards and so forth. So when you take those items into account, the actual savings is about $165,000 to the good. The two areas that had the most significant savings occurred in non-departmental, and that was related to the CDBG grant. So that's being pushed forward to the new fiscal year, to the current fiscal year actually. And in the police department, the biggest project there was the regional law enforcement training facility. Again, we know that the project did start in last fiscal year 15. It continued in the current fiscal year, and I believe we're pretty close to accepting that project. Transfers in the general fund were less than budget. A big ticket item there was $940,000 in impact fees that should have been transferred from the Northeast area impact fee for the regional law enforcement training facility. We did a loan there as well. So that didn't happen because most of the expenditures didn't occur in fiscal year 15. They're going to occur in current fiscal year. Transferred out from the general fund to the culture and recreation. We actually saw savings there. So they weren't as significant as we expected. There's actually a savings of about $180,000, so that helps out the general fund, and because other adjustments were positive in the culture and recreation. That's good news as well. So overall, the transfers in and out had a positive impact of about $41,000. However, once you do all the accounting entries, the positive impact to the general fund was just about $180,000. So at a glance, sometimes you might look and see that the general fund actually looks worse, but when you take everything into account, the $9,000 for revenue, the savings of $165,000 in expenditures, the positive change of $180,000 on transfers in and out, we're actually to the positive about $350,000 in the general fund.
Awesome.
We're pretty close to finishing up the audit. We hope that in the next day or two we're going to be wrapping up, and we haven't seen anything yet, but this is probably the earliest that we've presented the pre-audit report to council, so we're a little nervous that we were giving you some very preliminary information, but we're still haven't seen any significant adjustments. As far as the culture and recreation fund is concerned, revenues were positive, resulted in about $63,000. The largest shortfall was based on the housing grant that we haven't received because the project had not been completed as of yet. Park revenues were higher primarily due to recreation revenues were higher primarily related to miscellaneous recreation programs. Market revenues were higher based on, or compared to budget based on space rentals. Optics revenues were more than budget based on increased gate admissions, so it all looks good. Revenues not otherwise classified were more than budget primarily based on donations received, so that was definitely positive news. On the expenditure side, expenditures were just about $400,000 less than budget. However, again, once you have encumbrances and carry forwards and so forth, the actual savings will be just about $90,000. Transfers in, there wasn't as big of a need as originally estimated. So at the end of the day, we expect that the Culture and Recreation Fund will still have an ending fund balance of $100, again, because the general fund makes up any amounts necessary to make it whole. I do want to just talk a little bit about some of the other funds, a higher level perspective. Gas Tax Transportation Fund. Revenues were all close to budget amounts. The largest grant that was not received was in intergovernmental streets, and that was in Fund 10. The RSTP Regional Surface Transportation Program for Central Interchange had not been received. I know, we are. I've seen the paperwork, so that was the one that's the most significant. Expenditures were all close to budget. There was one item that was over the budget amount, that was in professional services in Fund 9, primarily due to contract change for the transit provider, with the transit provider. In the enterprise fund, storm, water, and solid waste were higher than budgeted based on operational charges as far as revenues. The water fund was less than budget due to the meters. We had originally estimated it to be collected at one time, but we've actually had the payment arrangements over a 3-year period for about $300 for water meters, so we did see a reduction in anticipated revenues. In the sewer fund, revenues were higher than budget, primarily in service charges. The city did receive about $3.9 million of the state revolving fund monies, and we anticipate just about $8 million to be received in next fiscal, or actually in the current fiscal year now, based on expenditures incurred to date. And that loan will be repaid over a 15-year period based on state completion. Expenditures within all of the enterprise funds were less than budgeted amounts. One of the items that you will see in the audit when it's presented is a new expense line item, and it's related to GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board number 68, and it's basically the accounting and financial reporting for pensions. It's basically presenting what we've all heard was going to happen was our net pension liability. We have included that in a footnote disclosure and a note disclosure up until the current fiscal year, but as of this current fiscal year 2015, it now has to be incorporated within our financial statement. So that is a new item that you will be seeing. Measure R, primary revenue source, we had an increase of just about $9,000, and that increase is related to purchases by our residents, internet sales, and the delivery of consumer goods. And the amounts expended actually represent the salary for 7 sworn officers, inclusive of 1 cop grant fund position and 1 dispatcher. And in the public safety fund, the amounts are representative of 1 police officer's cost and the amount that we paid to the CCSD. Impact fees, amounts budgeted were less than budgeted. Primarily, we had estimated approximately 15 single-family residential units to be sold and paid for. Those did not actually occur, so our revenues were less than budgeted, and our actual expenditures were within budgeted amounts. And it looks like just about every other fund was close to or within budget amounts with no significant variances. Staff will continue to monitor the city's revenues and expenditures. We anticipate bringing the comprehensive annual financial report to council the first meeting of December, and if there are any significant changes or any adverse fiscal changes to what I presented this evening, we will be sure to bring that to your attention, and we will continue to keep council apprised on the financial condition of the city based on our forecast. If you have any questions on my staff report, I'd be more than glad to address them, but it is an informational report this evening.
Council, questions?
No, but
Thank you.
I-
Very good. It's an awesome report. Thank you. Nice, we're in the black. All right. We're going to move on. Do I need to adjourn the original meeting? Okay. So we will adjourn this meeting and move to the special meeting, which will cover the amendments for the Galt firing range, Phase 1 project.
Mr. Mayor and council members, this short notice item is a request for increased funding authority to allow expedited completion of some supplemental safety improvements that are needed at our new law enforcement firing range. At the grand opening, CDCR, or at the ribbon cutting we did here a little over a week ago, CDCR brought some concerns to our attention after completion of the work. And we, in looking at their concerns, deemed them to be bona fide safety concerns for operation of a shooting range, which, as in previous presentations you've heard, does carry some liability with it. So we want to get it right. The time sensitivity in bringing this item as a special item tonight is driven by the inability of CDCR to use the range until those safety improvements are completed. That in turn, under our usage fee arrangement agreement with CDCR, impacts our revenues for the current year. They'll be prorated from September 1st to when we actually get the safety improvements completed. Those in turn are paying for the construction costs, so revenues are important. And then probably more importantly is if we were to wait and bring this back to you on October 20th, we're now pushing ourselves out into a weather window of unpredictable nature that we got some dirt work and some concrete work and the things where we need heavy equipment out there. We need to get that done before it starts raining. So that's sort of the impetus for a short notice item. As background, Gwen's going to give you a quick thumbnail sketch of what we're actually asking you to do tonight.
Okay, so just to add on to that briefly. Staff met with CDCR and also the designers to go over what the issues were and actually come up with reasonable solutions. As Steve said, there's a need to do this sooner than later. Staff is currently working with the contractor to develop a cost estimate. We don't have that yet, but we are in process of that. We currently have approximately $57,000 left on the contract contingency, but due to not knowing exactly how much the construction modifications are going to cost and the sensitivity of this item, we're asking you to have for council to authorize the interim city attorney to execute to be able to execute a contract change order and a contract amendment not to exceed the budget available, which is approximately $124,000. Very briefly, what the modifications are is this is one phase of a multi-phase project. When the project was designed in its entirety, the current 3 100-yard ranges, they're adjacent to it to the west, are 2 200-yard ranges. And part of that 200-yard range had a berm that also supplied some safety factors for one of the 100-yard ranges. Since that berm wasn't built, that second berm, that needs to be addressed. Additionally, CDCR requested that the walls extend further towards the berms. These are the walls that divide each of the firing ranges. Originally, the firing ranges were designed as rifle ranges.
towards the end of the process, CDCR had asked for markers put in for the 3-yard line, the 7-yard line, and 15-yard line so that they can use it for rifles. And so with that, there was a little bit of a gap with regards to the readjusting of the design. Additionally, the way from the 3-yard line to where the actual markers are, the target markers will be, it's sloped up a little bit, and apparently for when you shoot, you need to have a marker, a ring or target that is level with where you're shooting. Otherwise, if you're shooting at a 3-yard marker, you're shooting up, and that creates issues with them for them being able to qualify the cadets. So those are basically the 3 improvements that we're working with the contractor to come up with a cost estimate with. And with that, I am available for questions.
As it's built now, would it have been satisfactory for the Galt Police Department to use?
I will let the police chief answer that.
As Gwen said, they were designed to be rifle ranges, and so the walls separating the ranges are appropriate for that purpose. But when you use them for handguns, that's where the 3, 7, and 15-yard lines, and if you have gaps between the ranges, if you had some type of accident where someone was clearing a weapon and turned sideways and you fired around downrange. So no, it wouldn't be appropriate even for us. It's the handgun usage that is driving the change, not the rifle usage. So.
Then I have to ask, how did it get approved? How did the design get approved and built without us?
When we were in the process, we had met with CDCR at various points in time. The designs were basically, the vision plans were done, and the designs were basically fairly complete, and they asked us to put those markers in as an afterthought, and it was a gap that there was not a realization of it going from a rifle range to a hand pistol.
Would we have wanted it to be adequate for our own police department?
When I started the project, I was working with Lieutenant Updegrove, and that's what it was designed for. I was not part of the very initial beginning of the visioning plan, so I can't really address that. And because my expertise isn't in firearms and shooting, Public Works basically worked with PD on that. So. There is, as this is one phase of multi-phases, there is a multi-tactical range that is sort of an octagon that is much smaller, and it will be for rifles. And I think that was maybe the thought, is that we have 100-yard fire, 3 100-yard firing ranges, 2 200-yard firing ranges, and then the multi-tactical, which has walls on the, I'm not sure how many sides, on multiple sides. Is it 4 sides?
Octagonal, yeah, you're going to have 5 sides covered.
And so with that, then they could move at different locations. So I think that's what the thought was, is that these were originally designed just for rifle ranges, and a future phase would be for that.
And my understanding, just to add, that the plan was and still is to continue to use the existing 50-yard range for handgun qualifications. So it would seem to be prudent long-term to equip those ranges to be able to use handguns, and it'll probably never be less costly than it is today. To do those down the road would probably cost additional funds above what it's going to cost to do it now. So the plan is to use the existing range for handguns, but at such time when it becomes a multi-training center, the greater flexibility of the range, and allows greater potential use from outside agencies, and to generate some revenue to eventually offset some or most of those costs.
And all the revenue that will ultimately pay for the range is coming from CDCR, because we do have an agreement with them over a 3-year period to basically, I think it's somewhere after the 3-year period is where we start having, we have paid for the range, and we've paid for all the mitigation and the land to the wastewater treatment plant. So all the money that we've used to date has been revenue we've collected from CDCR for them using the range.
Well, I don't disagree that we need to do it. I'm just trying to figure out the process that we went through to be where we are now, where we have a range that really wasn't adequate for our own police department.
Well, I believe that the thought was, and this is before me, is that this was intended to be designed for a rifle range and that the existing range would not be decommissioned. And then ultimately, at another phase, the multi-tactical range would be actually constructed. When we first started this, when we put it out to bid, we had a scaled back over as opposed to the full improvements, but more improvements than we currently had because we didn't know what the cost would be. So when we first, I believe when they first started, they didn't know how many phases that they would actually be able to do given the construction costs to actually install those improvements.
Okay. Any others? I did want to say one thing. Excellent job. I know the last time we talked, you didn't think you'd be able to have this ready in time. Good job.
We're almost ready.
And if I might just add, maybe Barbara, to your concern is, this was a fast-track project, and sometimes small balls get dropped in a fast track. CDCR isn't used to reading, engineered plans and blueprints, and I believe it was truly an oversight in our understanding of what was desired. Their review, PD's review, nobody picked it up. Once you get out there and get it built, they go, whoa, what about these items? And we looked at it, we said, those are probably meritorious. So what we're asking for again tonight, with your approval, is to basically exercise an expanded contingency up to the budgeted amount that's currently in the approved budget of not to exceed $124,000, that the city manager then would be authorized to sign change orders to that effect for both the construction contract and a small addition for our construction manager.
Okay.
Well, we were hoping to have it done by the 1st of September. With the changes, hopefully we'll have it done by the 1st of October, so a month of reduced revenue.
Like, what would that equate to all months?
So 300 is the annual, so it's so a little less than 25 because we got the 70,000, so somewhere between 20 and 25,000 for the month.
All right. If I have no further questions, do I have a motion to approve?
Mayor Cruz, if
Yes,
I
ma'am.
may just briefly, if we could open it to public comment on this, since we're on a special meeting agenda for this.
Okay. And I will open public comment. Seeing no public comment.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
To approve.
Motion by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second?
Second.
You guys want to flip a coin? Second by Councilmember Bowers. Any further discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Unanimous vote. You're good to go. Okay, we will close out the special meeting and resume the original city council meeting. Communication, city clerk's office.
Just a few dates to remember. On Thursdays, the Beautification Committee meeting here at City Hall. The Commission on Aging is September 24th at Parks and Rec Building. Then we have a Public Safety Committee meeting at the Police Station on September 28th. The Youth Commission on October 5th, which brings us back to October 6th, the City Council meeting.
Okay. Comments by staff. We'll start over here. Inez? Tony? Chief?
No, thank you.
Paula? Armando? Steve?
I'd just like to report on a meeting that I attended this morning. It was a Board of Directors meeting for the South County Association of Water Agencies. That's a loose interpretation of their title. It's rather lengthy. And that's a group of water districts within the southeast county area. We've been in dialogue with them since before I came to the city as to potentially working with them towards perhaps an amended JPA that the city and the county and perhaps other agencies would enter into with them. What's driving The current discussions are, recently passed last year, the legislature passed a package of bills relating to adopting groundwater sustainability plans and groundwater sustainability agencies to represent all of the basins in the state. And if we don't, then either the county by default or the state, if the county elected not to, form a groundwater sustainability agency, could start adjudicating our basin and coming in, telling the city, the water districts, the irrigation districts, the resource conservation districts, how much water, what types of groundwater extraction they could do. So we think it's in the city's best interest, along with the other local agencies, to probably set our own rules rather than have somebody tell us what the rules will be. So I just want to make you aware that we are having preliminary staff level discussions. You might be approached by perhaps some of the elected board members for these other districts to talk to you about City of Galt, and you're welcome to either refer them to me with specific questions. We just want to let you know we've sort of at a staff level started talking with them about possibly entering some form of the JPA, and our expectations we bring back to council and agendize an item probably for later this year, perhaps in November, to maybe do a whole little study session on the whole Groundwater Sustainability Act and what these plans are, and maybe some recommended positions for the city to be thinking about.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Rudolph.
First, I'd like to just welcome Kimberly to her first regular council meeting. She's already been a great help to me, so I really appreciate her services. I also want to give the City Council an advance notice that the city will be participating with both of the school districts in the 3rd annual Galt Education Summit. It was held in the last 2 years. This year, the 3rd summit will be held on November 5th, most likely in Brewster's from 5:30 to 7, I believe is the timeline, but I'll confirm that date, or not the date, but the time when we get closer to November 5th. With that.
Okay. Kimberly, you have anything to say?
Excuse me. No, I have nothing to report, but I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, and excited for this opportunity, and I've really enjoyed working with the city and the staff so far. I'm looking forward to more. Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you.
Moving on to council, Mr. Campion.
Steve, what's new with Littleton?
We're still trying to procure final bids, but we do have a construction window targeted for the last week of November and first week of December, going into lighting of the night. We've blocked out on Parks and Rec's calendar to give us the last 2 weeks of November, I should say, and the first week to give us a 3-week construction window. And hopefully we will not need to bring that back to council. We'll be within the city manager's authority to issue a small contract. The only reason we would bring it back is if proposals come in higher than the budget, and then we'd have to talk with you some more about that.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Powers?
I just want to tell everybody that the Historical Society is having this Saturday a car show. I think it's from, do you know the time?
I didn't know.
Okay, I think it starts at 9 or 10.
I think it's 9.
It's in the week, it's the week before Saturday, I think.
It is a
No,
week?
it's the 26th.
I thought it was the 19th.
Yes, 26th.
It's 26th, it is the 26th.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's in a week, but we won't be here, so I'll just advertise it then. Good thing you didn't come out this Saturday.
That's good.
Oh, well,
You freaked me out.
I'd have been there,
It's like-
so. Maybe we could have thought of something. Yes, it's a Farland Ranch.
Vice Mayor Payne? Okay. Well, you freaked me out for a second. I signed up for cleanup with that.
Yeah, I gotta be there in the morning, so I'm glad somebody said something. I've been sitting there by myself. Cars to show up.
I wanted to applaud the community and also to our police department for their efforts to help out the people up on the foothills. I understand we've taken 3 loads of goods up to them to help out, and I really want to say thank you to both the community and the police department for doing that. Hopefully all is well up there, and I know a lot of people have lost their homes, and I know they're going to need your prayers and your thoughts. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting.